Hey guys, Casey here with FarmHacker.com, and today I'm with my friend Adon, who makes maple syrup from his own backyard. And today, in part one of this series, Adon is going to show you how to tap a maple tree.
So this is a sugar maple that we have. It's a smaller tree than some of the other trees that we've tapped. But the kind of the rule of thumb that they say is you want it to be 10 inches in diameter or more. So it's about a foot in diameter. My shoe's 12 inches, so it's about a 12-inch diameter tree. So when tapping a tree, you need to have a drill. So this is the spiles that I use. So this is the part that's going to go into the tree, and then this is where the sap's going to come out. And so the way we do it, we just tie a string around it, and we put, the last 2 years we've done milk jugs, just kind of set on around this, and I'll show you when I put it on there, and then it just drips right into the milk jug. They're gallon milk jugs, obviously, and then we just tie the string around the handle. So that's the way we've done it the last 2 years. I would prefer to have clear milk jugs because you could just look at it instead of going and needing to tap it to kind of see. 2 years before that, we did like 2-gallon buckets that we got just from Home Depot. And then the first year, I drilled a hole in the lids, and then we had like 3-foot long tubes, and so we'd connect the tubes to this, and then the tubes would drain into the bucket, and I did the lids so that debris wouldn't get in there. The first year it did pretty well. When we moved here 3 years ago and we did it, it didn't seem to really want to go into the bucket for some odd reason. So I took the tubes out and then just kind of hung the bucket on there, and it seemed to drip more freely. So I don't know if there's something with like air pressure, again, just trying to figure that out. So anyway, cool. Good.
All right, yeah.
So then just in tapping, there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason for how high you can go. I try to go about 3 feet above from the ground. And then when you drill in, you want to go, again, I talked about like 2 to 3 inches, 2.5 inches deep. And then you want to drill in at a slight angle up so that you just have that gravity feed it into the system. So I'm just going to go here, go a slight angle. Get those wood chips off there. So you need to make sure you have a clean hole too, so the sap can come through. And you can see the wood shavings are getting wet, so that's a good sign. So that means the sap's coming out. That's a real good sign. Yeah, if you drill and it's above freezing, and it has been for like a day or two, and it's dry, that's not a good sign.
Okay.
But you want it to be wet. So I'm gonna stop there. Just kind of blow those shavings out of there. Sometimes if I see there's some more in there, I'll just take like a little stick and kind of clean it out. But we're pretty good. I'm gonna put it in here, get my hammer, and just tap it in. You can see the sap coming out of it already.
Awesome.
When I hammered it. And then you just kind of fit it in there where it's snug and just gonna drip in there, and then I just kind of do a slip knot. to where it's not super hard to take off. And it kind of uses the pressure, the liquid in there to kind of secure it on there a little more with the slip knot.
Okay.
And that's it.
So what times of the year are the best to tap a maple tree or any type of tree?
Yeah, so I mean, typically they talk about after the new year. Really depends on your weather and where you're located. So I mean, like Canada, their flag is a maple leaf. You know, it's colder in Canada than it is in Florida, so you can't really do this in Florida,
Right.
unfortunately. So it needs to be below freezing at night and above freezing during the day.
Okay.
And so what I've done, where we live here in Northern Kentucky, they talk about rule of thumb if we have a typical winter between Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So like between February 14th and March 17th, thereabouts. But lately, because we've had warmer winters, I've tapped earlier.
Okay.
I like to kind of go more around the Super Bowl, which is the first weekend of February, so about 2 weeks earlier. Last year I tapped in the middle of January, again based on the weather, but then I didn't get as much yield as I did the 2 years prior.
Okay.
In the 2 years prior, I tapped more around that first weekend of February.
So is there any harm in tapping too early?
Well, you just won't get sap.
Okay.
So
Because the hole
it's
will...
all weather dependent, so it needs to again be below freezing at night and above freezing during the day. And if I think what happened was I tapped and it just didn't get above freezing during the day.
Yeah.
So it didn't create that vacuum system between the root system and the trunk. And
Okay.
so sap just stayed in the trunk system and it never came into my bucket or jug.
So say you tap early though, too early, but eventually the conditions get right. Will it still work?
The hole will seal up.
Okay.
So just like I showed you on some of those other trees where the tree scabbed over.
Yes.
Just like if we get a cut, it's not going to stay fresh and bleeding for 3 weeks.
Right.
You know, it's slowly my body starts to heal it. Same thing with a tree. The tree starts to heal that scab. And so that hole that you're creating, it's basically a bunch of straws in the tree system. And so the tree will slowly start to kind of scab over those openings that you created through the drill inside the hole, and then it heals from the inside out.
Okay.
In the tree. So your hole will last about 2 to 3 weeks,
Okay.
thereabouts.
So you could re-tap it
You
technically?
could re-tap it, but then you're bringing more harm to your tree by
Yes.
creating another hole in it. So for a tree this big, kind of rule of thumb that I've seen is if it's about between like 10 inches and like 20 inches thereabouts, maybe 15, you can put one tap in the tree. And then 15 to 20 some inches in diameter, you can maybe put 2 or 3.
Okay.
And the most I've seen people do is like 4 taps in a tree.
Wow.
But that's a pretty big round tree, you know.
Okay.
So some of these trees I could probably put 4, but this tree I would just put 1.
Okay.
You know. So they last on average about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Per drill hole.
Great.
Yeah. So this is another silver maple that we tap in our yard. It's a pretty big tree. It's one of our better producing trees of sap in our yard. This summer, if you look up above, there's some power lines that run through, unfortunately. So they had to come through and lop off some of the branches on some of these larger branch systems from the tree. So what I did, which was kind of silly, but I put a tap over here, and this was kind of a more, they lopped off a lot more of the branches. So basically, the more leaves, and this area up here is called the crown of the tree. You want your maple tree to make sure that it's a healthy tree. You want to make sure that crown is pretty big. And the leaves are kind of what they talk about, like the powerhouse or the food system of the tree. That's where the food's created, photosynthesis, and the sap's running to the leaves. And so the bigger the crown, the more leaves that you have, the more sap that the tree's going to have. And so because they lopped off the branches and the leaves here, there's not going to be as much sap running into this branch system, even though it's pretty big. So as you can see, there's not as much sap flowing out of this as there was last year in kind of a similar area. And then here, you can see that there's nothing really in there. And so tapping in kind of a V of a tree, talked to a local person at the UK extension office, and they said this is kind of more like dead wood here, and so there's not as much sap flowing here because it doesn't need sap. So there's no sap there, so I know not to do that next year. But to tap more into these larger branch systems here would be more ideal. So I'm going to tap over here. In this tree here, you can see that it's started to bud.
Oh yeah.
And so there's sap called green sap, and so that doesn't taste as good. You know, it's more bitter, and it's more like productive for the tree and creating leaves, and not as tasteful to us and for sap or for syrup.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of pushing the limits on if I should tap it or not, but because I maybe tapped too late, I'm just going to try it and see. So that's called green sap. It doesn't taste as good. It's more bitter. I think I'm still okay for a little bit. These are pretty new buds here still, so I'll just try to see.
Okay.
So I'm going to tap a little further up. I tapped down here, I think it was last year. And so I'm just going to tap a little further up. So the rule of thumb again was like about at least 6 inches to either side. You don't want to go in the same kind of vein. So you wouldn't want to go directly above or directly below the hole that you drilled the year prior, maybe even 2. So I'm going to go over here and try it and see if I get anything. So.
Okay.
Wet wood shavings. That's a good sign.
That one seemed to go in a lot easier.
Yeah, it did, actually. I don't know why that is. There's sap coming out already.
Oh,
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, look at that.
And so the other thing with putting the spiles in, you want to make sure that your hole is deep enough. So this is a spile. So you wouldn't want the hole to be an inch because you couldn't get your whole spile in there. You wouldn't want the hole to just be 2 because I put the 2-inch spile in, and then there's no exposed hole for the sap to come into this hole at the end of the spile.
Okay.
So you want it to be longer than the spile, at least by a little bit. I like to give maybe another inch. So that's why I do between 2.5 and 3 inches deep. To make sure that there's some area for the sap to flow from the tree into the end of that hole of the spile. And this is a little easier today because it's warmer. When it was raining on me that was the other day, it was raining and cold. That was hard to tie, so I do that. But
You ever have any issues with these falling?
yeah, I mean sometimes. So like this isn't like super secure, so I need to make sure it's a little better. But like especially with the buckets, when they just kind of hung on there with the handle, they would come off the spile a lot more easily. And so we would use like twisty ties, or we just use right here like old shoestring. Like if we have old tennis shoes, we'll throw away the shoes, but we'll keep all of our shoestring because they come in handy for things like this or whatever else you need to just kind of tie up if you don't want to go through a bunch of rope. We just find that to be useful, those old shoestrings, and they have been. So we use some like twisty ties from like the grocery store if they have like parsley or things like that kind of bunched and bundled together. They're like these really long twisty ties, you know, and so those were really helpful. I could show you a bucket and what we did actually. Yeah, so these are the 2-gallon buckets that I got from Home Depot. They talk about like anything that's food grade, so there was nothing in this. So I just cleaned it with hot water and soap. They talk about maybe using a really diluted concentrated bleach.
Okay.
But I found soap to be fine, because we're the ones consuming the sap. So we're not necessarily selling it commercially.
Right.
But if we were, like if at like a farmer's market or something, we might want to do a little bit of bleach just to kind of make sure that it's sanitary enough for the, you know, population. But so here's the handle, and so what I would do, I'll just take this off since there's nothing in there. I would put the handle on the end of the spile, kind of like that, and then I would just tie it from the spile onto the handle.
Yeah.
And with the twisty tie, it was nice because I would literally just twist, and then it would be fine, and then it would drip right here into the bucket.
Okay.
And then sometimes I would maybe put a lid and kind of snap it on this side, so it'd kind of be going up above the spile.
Yeah.
But it was just more of a finicky system, so we didn't do that. We didn't do that this year because it's more pain.
I would imagine the buckets probably get more debris in them too.
They do, yeah. I mean, like you could see there's just like from the bark, or if it gets a little bit warm and some like bugs come out, they might end up in there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But the lids were helpful for that, you know, purpose a little bit. But it's just been easier with the milk jugs for us because, again, they're not producing a ton. I think if they were producing a couple gallons a day, it could become maybe a little annoying.
Right.
You know. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember if I ever tapped up here. I don't know if I've ever really tapped this high before. But. Nothing really. That's pretty dry. So we'll see. But you could hear that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen. That's a pretty good flow.
That is a good flow. It's like this spot here, this V would not be like a good spot to tap.
Okay.
But more like in the vertical branch line or trunk line is the more ideal spot. So because it's on this more vertical spot,
Yeah.
that's a better spot.
You found
to
the
tap.
sweet spot there.
Yeah, literally, hopefully. But this one isn't really, that's concerning. That's a dry hole.
Okay.
Well, there's a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah, you can try it. I
Yep.
guess.
The hole's there, might as well. It's helpful to have like a longer shoelace too, especially with like a, I guess called a slip knot. You get a little bit more of a kind of loop here that you could just pull through. So that's something that we've had to kind of learn. What's an easy knot to do that we can just take off real easily and put back on real easily, and
Yeah.
you know, yeah. If you're doing like a double knot and it's cold and wet and you got to use your fingers, you know, with the string, it's kind of a pain, you know.
Yeah.
It's not very helpful. So.
Hey guys, if you like this video, please check the description below for links to items we may have used, as well as a link to our website, farmhacker.com, where you'll find more awesome stuff like this. Also, please subscribe to our channel and you'll be notified as soon as there are new videos posted. Thanks for watching.